It's a great pleasure. It's always great to be able to give back to the people that were so gracious to me during my wrestling career. I'm excited to be able to share verbally with my fans across the country.
I'd like to know what Ernie Ladd's childhood was like.
Well, Ernie Ladd was a typical poor black kid. We were very poor. I recall I was born in Rayville, Louisiana, and I left about 3 weeks old. Went to Marshall, Texas, from Marshall, Texas to Orange, Texas, and jobs were plentiful, and my mother moved to Orange, Texas, and I recall her working in a cafe, and then I recall her dating a man named James Ford, who was my stepfather, who raised me, and I grew up very big, and we lived in a garage apartment, and we were able to get out of the garage apartment. We moved into the projects, and from the projects, we moved out in the country, a place called 16th Street in Orange, Texas, and that's where I got my start. I had to walk about 5 miles from school when I practiced football or basketball, but I played football in high school for the greatest coach that I could have played for. His name was Willie Ray Smith, Bubba Smith's dad. He's a great high school coach. He's a great teacher, but most of all, he was a great motivator. And he believed in helping young people get character and identity to know themselves early on in life, and have a great appreciation for him for that. And my high school days were great days to be able to go to Wallace High School in Orange, Texas, and have the classmates that I had were great classmates. I could name a few: Duke Green and Marie Green and Dorothy Henderson. I could name many, many others. Charles Simpson, Billy Matlock. Just a few of the great kids that I grew up with in high school. John Arline, and I loved Orange, Texas. It was segregated during those years. I'm 66 years of age while making this interview, but I came along in the 50s, 40s, and 50s in Orange, Texas, where we're segregated. Black on one restroom door and white on another restroom door, but regardless of the era, the people were great people during that time, and you had good whites, you had bad whites, you had good blacks, you had bad blacks. So it's not a time or era to point a finger at anyone. It's just when I look back and reflect on my life, I'm thankful for having a principal named T.L. Ingram and a great high school coach named Willie Ray Smith to help give Ernie Ladd some direction. It was just more than playing football or playing basketball. It was recognizing a young man that might have some talent and let it go to work and making his talent better than what it was, giving him opportunities to develop it. And Willie Ray Smith certainly gave me an opportunity to develop my talent.
Who were some of your sports heroes as a child?
I really didn't have a sport hero as a child. The person that made me go to Grambling State University, Grambling College at the time, was I saw Paul Tank Younger play football, and they said, the announcer said, the man that made little old Grambling College famous, Tank Younger. And from that day on, I wanted to go to Grambling, and so that's what inspired me to go to Grambling, because I didn't really get excited about it till years later in college. A basketball player named Bill Russell, and football player was Tank Younger. And I thought those were great people to watch and pattern after.
Talk about your college football career specifically.
Well, You couldn't have played for a better coach in college than Eddie Robinson. The winningest coach in the history of college football was Eddie Robinson. I played with some of the greatest players that ever played the game. Buck Buchanan, Lane Howell, Roosevelt Taylor, Willie Brown. That's just a few of the players. Garland Boyette, Leon Simmons. That's just a few of the players that I played with. And the team I played on in 1960, 13 players from that team went to the pros. It's not too many colleges could go around and say that many players from a team that you played on went to the pros.
Because colleges were segregated in that day and age, you didn't get to play some of the larger programs that we think of today. How would your team have matched up against programs that you didn't have an opportunity to play against?
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What my team going to match that? We would have beat the hell out of them. That's what we done, because we had the best players. We had the best players. You were sick. Let me tell you something. And understand me when I tell you this. In the 70s, late 60s and the 70s, 80% of all of the defensive backs, most of the defensive backs in the NFL came from the SWAC. Add Tennessee State, Florida A&M, and all your speed was in the black schools. I played with Stone Johnson, co-holder of the world record, 2 gold medals in the Olympic Games. And how we were stacked up against the white schools, we'd beat the hell out of them. I had played with the Gray Ghost, fastest man I ever saw in the 40 at the time. You got Buck Buchanan at one tackle, and you got Ernie at the other tackle. You got Lane Howell, who played 14 years in the NFL at center. You got Garland Boyette, who played about 14, 15 years at one guard, and Leon Simmons at the other guard. You got Roosevelt Taylor, played 14 years with the Bears and Washington Redskins. You got Willie Brown, Hall of Famer. How would we defend that? Silly question. Matter of fact, I say it's a very dumb question. We would have beat them. Just that simple. We got Stone Johnson, co-holder of the world record in the 220 at quarterback, and Pretty Red, another guy called Pretty Red. And Howard, we got Gray Ghost, the fastest guy probably in the country, in the 40-yard dash playing football. How would we have panned out? You would have asked the other teams how they would have panned out against us. The SWAC was a great producer of great athletes, not good athletes, but great athletes. Does that answer your question, mister?
Certainly. I understand today that you still are in communication with some of the guys you played college ball with. You go back for reunions.
Very much so. And being in contact with them, you talk about guys in their 60s, and quite often we visit, reminisce. I played football. The #1 player picked in 1961 in the draft was Earl Faison. That was my roommate when we were with the San Diego Chargers. He's the #1 player picked in 1961. And we communicate together all the time. And Paul Lowe and Ernie Wright, some of these guys that I played with, and I enjoy the communication. I go back with a guy like Ernie Barnes, who's an artist, did all the paintwork for Good Time. And he's an artist and he lives in Hollywood now. And he's a famous artist. So we visit with him. It's great.
A lot of people that are watching this video are wrestling fans, and they may not understand that there was a difference between the AFL and the NFL and how you were drafted. Can you explain to people how that worked when you entered into the professional football?
In the early years of the league, you had a guy that was a domineering force in the NFL called George Hallis. And he didn't really pay players a lot of money to play. But I'm thankful for rich young owners, like the owners of the San Diego Chargers, Baron Hilton, who probably spent $1 million or so the first year. And Lamar Hunt, the same thing, and K.S. Bud Adams, and Sonny Werblin. These are the guys that had deep pockets. And most other people that trying to start a league didn't have enough money to sustain themselves. I recall a sports writer asking Lamar Hunt's daddy one year, he lost $1 million. He said, how much longer would your son be in football losing $1 million a year? That was unheard of. And I understand Mr. Hunt hesitated and said, that means my son will be in business for another 144 years. Oh boy, that set him on fire real well. They had owners that were not fly-by-night owners. They meant to own a sports franchise. But the amazing thing about it, in '60, a sports franchise cost you $25,000, and they're over $500 million right now. So, which was a great investment for a period of 40 years or so.
But describe who selected you in the draft.
Well, to be honest with you, I was kind of kidnapped. But the Chicago Bears drafted me in the 4th round, and the Chargers drafted me, and they asked me to come sit on a plane with the team in San Diego. Next thing, in Houston, they played a championship game. Next thing I know, the plane was leaving the ground, and we landed in San Diego, and we landed in California. And next thing I know, I was negotiating to go play pro football, and that's how I ended up in San Diego. And I don't think I could have played for a better team at the time, but I probably could have played for a better coach. I thought Sid Gilmore was a great coach, but in the end, I found out he was kind of a terrible coach because he didn't understand players. You don't get an Earl Faison and an Ernie Ladd and break that combination out the 2 greatest pass rushers in football at the time. Devastating. The first fearsome force in football was the San Diego Chargers. And then you break that kind of line up, it could have been awesome to keep that team together for another 2-3 years. But he outsmarted himself. And that great player like Paul Lowe, running back, and Charlie McNeil, Ron Mix, offensive tackle, Dave Kasarik, tight end, Paul McGuire, the comedian Paul McGuire, that's the announcer. We had great camaraderie, and Lance Allworth and John Hadle, great players, and Don Norton, great players to play with. What made our team so great in the early years, we had relation. The NFL was still segregated. They still had a few white boys. The white boys stayed together in the hotel on the road. Black boys stayed together, roommate. Chargers, you were roommates by position. Not because you were black and white, was gonna keep it segregated. And a lot of the players in the American Football League set examples, like the Chargers. If the situation wasn't right, we would take a stand and refuse to participate. It was just that simple. And we got decent support. We didn't get the best of support. They tried to give us some ultimatums, but Ernie Ladd wouldn't follow the ultimatums, no way. You couldn't scare me into doing anything because I was married to a great woman. My wife told me early on, she said, baby, I have my degree. If you get put out of football, you have to leave football. So we just work and take care of one another. And so that made me stand up there. The situation was put before me. And I didn't back down in no time when it comes to making a decision. I made a decision because I was a man and that's what I wanted to do. And not necessarily what impress someone else or influence someone else. It was done because it was the right thing to do. It was a manly decision.
I don't know if people could appreciate how large you were as a tackle when you played. Your playing weight and size, even by today's standards, is very large. But by the standards that you played at in the 60s was just extraordinary.
Well, if Ernie Ladd had to describe Ernie Ladd during the 60s, when I look back and I see pictures of me, Ernie Ladd was a freak. I was a 6'9", and 3/4, almost 6'10", and weighed 330 pounds, no fat, run 4.9 in the 40. That was a pretty good athlete. I was pretty good size, and I had great agility, and extremely quick off the line of scrimmage. And I look back on my years, if we'd have been great weightlifters, I could have probably played at 360 and still maintain 5 flat, probably in the 40.
Was your experience with the Chargers the first time on an athletic team that you were able to interact with whites, or did you have any previous time that it was not segregated?
That was the very first time, and when I was at Grambling, I played against white basketball team because I played basketball at Grambling for a year. But as far as the integration part of my football career was college all-star game and the Chargers.
Can you talk about some of the memories of that? A lot of people can't appreciate the era of the 60s and some of the ordeals that you had to encounter as a result of playing in segregation.
Well, I want to say something that I never said before for a long time. I was very angry with Uncle Ram for a long time because he did something that was very racist and very bad at the college all-star game. When I left Grambling under the direction of Eddie Robertson, I left to play all out and could play, and thumbs down in the college all-star game as a defensive lineman. I had outworked everybody at the college all-star game. Anybody that was there know it, so I recall. I had laid out a couple of people there in the college all-star game. Nobody was outrunning me on the line. And because I was from Grambling, the day of the game, he started the other players. Then I flipped a coin. The coach flipped a coin and said who was going to start at the position I was playing at. And Ben Davidson won the coin flip. Ben Davidson had not outworked me. I'm not criticizing Ben Davis, but he had not outworked me in the college all-star game. I was like heads and shoulders what had happened in the college all-star game. And he won the toss. I couldn't be angry at Ben Davidson for winning the toss. I stayed bitter with Otto Graham for making that type of decision. I thought it was a real racist decision that he made.
You alluded to it earlier. You left San Diego because of a contract issue.
Yeah. There are a lot of hidden things still in football that didn't meet the eye, and it came primarily from the head coach. When I played out my option to leave to go play for Houston Oilers, they had players that they were bringing in, unproven rookies, giving them $40,000 bonus and $50,000 salaries, and $50,000 salaries and $40,000 bonus. And I couldn't even get a $30,000 contract at the time. That's why I left the Chargers. He had one of the most prolific pass rushers in the game. And the coach didn't want to pay me, so he didn't think that I would play my option out. I played my option out and left. And the defensive line from that time on started going down with the Chargers because one man destroyed it. And Ernie Ladd and Earl Faison was a flat out right combination. Bob Petrick and Bill Hudson. We had a pretty good defensive line, and Bill Hudson at one tackle, Ernie Ladd at the other tackle, Bob Petrick defensive end, and Earl Faison. We had a very good defensive line, and the folks could have been someplace else to make that a great defense. I mean, one of the all-time great defensive teams. If the coach would have chose to go that route, and rather than pay, he let me play my option out, and I had made my mind up that I was not going to play for the Chargers anymore, and which was a mistake made by the coach of the San Diego Chargers, Sid Gilman. I didn't like leaving guys like Ron Nix, who I really enjoyed a lot, and Earl Faison, and John Hagel, and Lance Allworth. Those were great teammates. We had great camaraderie. Don Norton and Dave Kasarik, and I enjoyed it. You know, my early years, my first year, I played with quarterback Jack Kemp, and the team had great cohesiveness. I never played with another team in pro football that had the cohesiveness that the San Diego Chargers had. I mean, it was a well-together, lean, mean machine. You got guys like Charlie McNeil that I played football with, and his daughter Lori McNeil became a superstar in tennis. But to be able to tell you a team that I played with that was better, couldn't. Tell you a team that I enjoyed playing with more, couldn't. So Chargers was the elite team in football because race had no place on our team. And it was just a great team, just plain and simple.
Do you have any contact with the Chargers organization today?
Of course. I can call in. Some of the people that was with the Chargers when I was there, one of the ladies is still there. And they have not forgotten me. I call and ask for something, and they respond.
I believe that they also inducted you recently into the San Diego Hall of Fame?
San Diego Hall of Fame. They were a little late about doing it, but better late than never, I would imagine. And I hold no animosity. You know, it's that choosing.
I want to talk about your injury. I believe it was when you were playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. I guess it was the injury that ultimately not caused you, but was one of the reasons that you were able to leave pro football and go into professional wrestling.
Well, I was 28, and I wanted to take a year off to see how much money I could make as a wrestler. And I found out I made more money as a wrestler than I did as a football player, and I didn't go back to football. That was the big thing as far as I was concerned, that I had an opportunity to make more money. And when I got that opportunity, I took advantage of it.
Had you ever watched or followed professional wrestling before you had that initial tryout?
Well, the amazing thing is Dick Byers, the Destroyer, came down and challenged me to come to a man's sport, and I said, I'm not going down there where you phony wrestlers are. So I hurt somebody. He said, well, come on down and hurt somebody, big mouth. So I chose to go down, and they just rubbed my nose in the mat all over the place. And I found out I wasn't as good as I thought I was. But I didn't realize that I was out of my arena into someone else's arena. And so they made me eat a little of the canvas, and they broke me in and started training me, and I became a wrestler, and I enjoyed it very, very much. And when I left football, it was because I was making more money as a wrestler and because I enjoyed wrestling more than I did playing football.
When you say you were broken into wrestling, you mentioned Dick Byers' name, but who else was involved?
Well, had a lot of guys. And Tiger Conway, when I came to Texas, kind of took me under his wing, and a few other guys. It's been so far back that I really don't recall all of the people that had an impact upon my life, but I can certainly say Mars Siegel and Paul Bosch were people that gave me an opportunity. I go back to Vince McMahon Sr. in New York at Madison Square Garden. Gave me a good opportunity to come in and make money. And the Sheik in Detroit, Eddie Farhead, and Sam Muchnick in St. Louis, Frank Tooney in Toronto. But the biggest impact on my life probably was Pedro Martinez out of Buffalo, New York. Bill, the two probably biggest impact on my life in terms of creating success in Ernie Ladd as a wrestler, because Pedro Martinez taught me how to get my money, how to get paid, and which gave me an opportunity to develop my talent and be a complete heel and not a part-time heel, and made sure I got paid the dollars that I had coming, that I thought I had coming. That was a great opportunity. I came along during an era where you didn't have a lot of great black superstars, and I was able to become an international star as a wrestler, and it was primarily because of a couple of people that saw fit to put me in position and give me that opportunity. And I had enough talent and ability to take advantage of it. But there are some great places I enjoyed wrestling. Indianapolis, Chicago, Florida, against Dirty Rhodes down in Florida. I really enjoyed wrestling against Dusty Rhodes, who was great box office. Ladd and Rhodes made great box office. And Junkyard Dog and Ladd made great box office. One of the best matches I thought I'd ever had was in St. Louis one night against Fritz von Erich. And I thought that was one of the masterpieces of my wrestling career, one of the highlights of my wrestling career.